All right, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Trey Fan Podcast. I'm your host, Rashawn. I'm thrilled to be joined by a hip hop legend. You may recognize him with his debut single back in 2006, This Is Why I'm Hot, which peaked the top of the Billboard Hot 100. That's right, MIMS. Welcome to the show, my bro.
What's going on, man? And I see this thing here is showing my whole government. So shout out to everybody out there that's probably going to look up my government now out there, but it's all good. How you feeling, man?
I'm good, bro. I'm so like grateful for this opportunity. We actually have the same name, right? Like my name's also Sean.
I know. I just actually got the email from you, man. So it's always good to be around uh another Sean, I guess. It is.
Like first and foremost, I just want to give you your flowers, man. Like you were always a legend in the game. Thanks for all the memories that you gave to me as a kid. Like that record I was listening to when I was like 9 years old at school. It was
Nice.
definitely like a big influence, like walking around and talking big, you know what I mean?
Nice,
And
nice.
the other records like from that album, It's All Right, Doctor Doctor, Don't Cry. Those are like huge inspirations when I was a kid. So, I just want to say thank you for all that, growing up and stuff.
I appreciate it, and thank you for giving me a platform to speak on, and congratulations to you on your platform as well. So yeah, man. Thank you for the kind words.
Of course, man. Thank you so much. So let's get right into it. Where did your love for music begin, and what was that time like for you?
For me, it was from when I was young, obviously. So it's a long story, but I'm gonna try to condense it so that it doesn't get all boring. I grew up in a single parent household. My mom raised me and my older brother. And my father lived a few blocks away, but we didn't, I don't, as a kid, I don't have any memories of being around my father. Um, so the one memory I do have, the one time I actually remember going to see him, he had these two turntables at the time. And I remember tugging on my mother and asking her, "Hey, what are those things?" And she said that they were turntables. And I think I was probably around 9 years old at the time. And I think that it must have been from like the age of 9 or 10 all the way to when I turned 13. I would beg my mom to get me some DJ equipment. And for me, looking back on it as a child, I was probably just trying to find a connection to
Yeah.
my father because I didn't know this guy. And uh, my father passed away when I was 11. Um, Obviously, still didn't have a relationship with him, so it didn't affect me as much when he passed away. But then when I turned 13, for my 13th birthday, my mother actually purchased me two turntables and a mixer.
Yeah.
And shortly after, she actually passed away. So music actually for me was at first it was a way to connect with my father who had passed away. And then second, it became just a refuge, a place that I would go to just to get away from the absence of having my mother around. And, I think when you look back at that type of tragic situation in my early childhood, and then you fast forward to where my career went and propelled to, I feel like there's like it's almost like I don't even know what they call it, what kind of story they call it, but it's just one of those like improbable
Yeah.
scenarios that were probably not meant to happen, but by the grace of God, like it became what it was, and I became who I am.
No, that's amazing, man. Because I was gonna say, like, losing both of your parents, especially at a young age, like I can't imagine like how much trauma and effect that must have taken on you. How did that affect you as a person, like growing up too with that?
I think when you're faced with adversity in life, you have two decisions you got to make, right? So the first decision is always going to be, do you it's they call it flight or fight or flight or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
do you actually accept what it is and become a better person based on it, or do you accept what it is and use it as a way to structure how you move in your life from a negative perspective? And I think for me, even though that tragedy struck me when I was young, my mentality has always been life is short, live it up, do what you got to do, live in the moment, be courageous, be willing to take risks and chances. And I think that tragedy shaped me into who I am now because I basically live, that's like my mantra. I live by it every day.
Yeah, and that's great to hear because, you know, it's a very tough thing when it comes to grief, especially obviously at a young age. Like there's two different ways you can go about it, and it's nice to hear and that you even you at such a young age that, you're gonna use it to better yourself and still find ways to become a good person and look towards those avenues. So that's great to hear, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think what I love the best about my position is, most people don't see me. When they see me, they don't know my story, right? So like
yeah,
that, like it's unless you read up on me, you really don't know my story. But what I love about it is because of what I've come from. When I get in front of some people who are facing adversity and they hear my story, it's almost like this aha moment for them when they're like, "Man, I might not have it that bad," and then they
yeah.
start realizing that life is really just like, you got to attack it by the horn. So I think it's cool in a way because it just puts me when people do hear my story, I almost in essence think that it's some sort of like it motivates them in some strange way.
It gives them perspective for sure.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the one thing that like I wanted to say, like that's great that you actually, you know, use that as a platform in a sense, where I think
Absolutely.
that it's so easy to fall into a cycle, especially when dealing with a lot of trauma and past pain. But there's ways to heal yourself in a way. And I think like also when you're talking to people who has like similar trauma or similar stories, it probably gives you a sense of different perspective on their end. And then, like you said, like it makes them think about things a little bit differently from your side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So anybody watching out there, if you're facing adversity, if you're going through something, just know that there's always a way to pull yourself out of it if you have the willpower and if you have the strength and the energy and the mindset, right? It starts
Yeah.
up here for sure.
So MIMS, the name meaning music is my savior. Why did you feel like that was the name that best represented you?
So Mims is actually my real last name,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's I mean, even as I talk about my history in life and my family's history, um, Mims is obviously the name that my father carried, and not knowing this human growing up and being raised by my mom, having to have the last name of someone you don't know much about. I think for anybody who knows this feeling, especially those who were raised in a single parent household, you kind of get to a point where you have to create meaning behind your own name, right?
Yeah.
Like like if Obama, if Barack Obama obviously has kids, the Obama name has a brand.
Yeah.
Sean Carter has his children are going to carry the Carter name as a brand, and I think for me it was important that my name first and foremost be just my brand because it's who I am, but also that I build on something so that my legacy carries on when I'm gone, and my children's children are
Yeah.
around. They could say, "Hey, my great 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 grandfather was Sean Mims." So as far as the title to the album, "Music is My Savior," the acronym obviously breaks down to my name, but it also is the truth, right? Like without music, and for those biblical people out there or religious people out there, this is not a poke at life or God.
Yeah.
God is in the details. He's in everything. So for me, he came to me via music, and that was kind of what kept me on the straight and narrow, right? That kept my life on a path for success because I was so diligent in pursuing something in the music industry. So music was really my savior, has really been my savior in life. Obviously, God is the savior, but music to me was something that he gave me the ability to do to get out of my circumstances.
So speaking about your circumstances, can you tackle on like what life was like in your area where you grew up in New York?
So I originally grew up in a place called Washington Heights, which is like right above Harlem. So for anyone who know, and that's in Manhattan, New York, for those who
Yep.
don't know New York. Um, Washington Heights, I loved it. I mean, it's what I know as a child. Some people may say it was a wild place back in the 80s and 90s. You may hear a lot of music references where Washington Heights was the home of like basically where all the drugs kind of moved in and out of the city. So when you hear certain artists rap in their songs and they say, "I went to Broadway or Uptown," they're really talking about Wash Heights. So the culture of Wash Heights was never really just a music, it wasn't defined as a music culture.
Yeah.
It was really just defined as a hustle culture where a lot of people coming from that who hailed from Washington Heights had this. this hustle that just became a part of who they were. You know, even when you were a kid, you kind of learned how to hustle all the way to when you're adult. And then ironically, I kind of say that I have this like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air story, right? So like
Yeah.
when my mom passed away when I was around 13, my grandmother became my guardian, and my aunt was planning on moving from Washington Heights into Long Island. And I think I was around 16, 17, 16 years old, almost 17 years old. And I had to make a choice whether or not I was going to go to Florida and live with my grandparents, or I was going to stay in New York and live with my aunt in Long Island. So I got to move to Long Island when I was 16. And what I love, so I always say when people ask me where I'm from, I obviously say I'm from Washington Heights.
Yeah.
But what I love the most about Long Island, it was that was my first glimpse of seeing uh people of color, like black people who were thriving, who
Yeah.
were middle class, upper class, and in essence in that area. I got to see people who were living above, average. And it gave me a different perspective on life. And I feel like without that experience, there probably would be no MIMS today, or it wouldn't be who I am today. Because they always say in order for you to understand what success is, you have to see it, you have to
Yeah,
visualize
for
it.
sure.
And that was my way of visualizing it, being able to see grass and houses and black people who made money,
Yeah.
or people of color who made money. It didn't matter if you were black, you could be Latin or Hispanic and make money. And it was just one of those places where I was like, man, you know, um, I'll give an example. I remember I used to go to the Range Rover dealership. They got a Range Rover dealership in Glen Cove, and I'm probably snitching on myself. And I would go there on a Sunday when the dealership was closed, and I would sneak in and sit inside of these Range Rovers.
Yeah.
And for me, because I love cars so much, it would just be one of those things where I would just sit in and I would just like,
Yeah.
do this to the steering wheel like I'm driving it, and I'm like a teenager at this point. And that became my vision, and I visualized myself at some point getting a Range Rover. And then I think when I turned 24, one of the first cars I purchased was a Range Rover.
Wow.
And and I don't say that meaning material things are the best, but I just say that meaning if you can't visualize it, it makes it extremely hard to obtain it.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
anybody out there that's struggling with what they want in life, you got to figure out how to visualize it and sometimes even make it tangible where you touch it.
Yeah. And
Mm.
that's like you like what you're saying is just like we always fall into a trap where, like you said, if we don't see it, we have troubles to try to identify it if it's even possible, you know? And for you to obviously have that interaction, like living with your aunt and stuff, that made it seem like, okay, like, I can actually do something out here. Because what you're probably used to um, was just another lifestyle in a way, right? So you didn't think it was
Yeah.
possible.
I mean, and this is no disrespect to anybody coming from the city or growing up in Wash Heights, but I don't remember being a kid and even worrying about college,
Yeah.
or I didn't even really know what college was as a child, as a teenager. It wasn't a vision. We were just trying to get through high school, at that time. And I think when I got to, in particular, it was Westbury, New York, and I got to the high school there, and they started saying, "Hey, you guys are like in 11th grade." I think I was midway into my 11th grade year. You got to start filling out college applications. I didn't know what that was. I was like, "What do you mean
Yeah,
college
they give them like
applications?"
no warning, basically.
Nothing coming from the city. Doesn't mean that the education wasn't there, because I was always educated. But just certain things that you don't visualize when
Yeah.
you grow up certain places. So it's cool to see. I mean, even though I didn't go to college, it was cool to see that that was a possibility
Yeah.
as well. I attended community college, and it was like attending the 13th grade, but it was enough of an experience for me to say, you know what, I'm gonna just pursue music.
Yeah. Was that decision hard for you at all though to like decide maybe because college is an option that, you know what, I'm gonna just go full time with this music thing? Like, was there any like consideration or regret you had?
To each his own. What I'm about to say will probably upset a lot of people, but I'm pretty sure it's nothing new. It's not a new discussion. I
Yeah.
think college presents itself well for certain industries, right? Like if you are trying to get into law or being a doctor in the medical field, And obviously college is something that you have to go through because you need to receive certain certificates and licenses to become to practice in those worlds. I think for me, understanding that I just had a straight business regimen and I
Yeah.
was worried more about being a businessman. I found it easier to put boots to the ground, right? Like I found it easier to just throw myself in the mix and learn while I was in the mix.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is if I had $5 in my pocket and I had to turn that into $10, I didn't need a school book telling me how to do it. Like I knew how to go out and turn
Yeah.
five into 10. And I think when you have that, once again, the pros and the cons of growing up in Washington Heights, when you have that, that becomes a part of your DNA because other people around you have been hustling their whole life. So and when I make these references, it's in no means, shape, or form in the means of me saying you got to go out and sell drugs. To me, a
Yeah,
hustle
for sure.
just means that you understand how to turn $5 into $10. You know,
Yeah. And like I said, like it might not be for everyone in particular of what they're trying to accomplish anyways. So that's all you're trying to say.
absolutely.
I noticed that you also spent some time in Toronto, where I'm from, under
Yeah.
Wyclef. What was that time like for you? You know, it must have been scary stepping out of your comfort zone, especially being from New York and stuff.
I'm gonna give you my Toronto story. And for anybody out there that's watching from the T dot, I'll say this: one of my biggest records at the beginning of my career was a record I did with a sound crew called Baby Blue Sound Crew. I had a record that featured myself and
Oh shit.
Choclair, and
Nice.
I wrote the record. It was called Love 'Em All. And at the time I was this young 19-year-old kid, I think. And we filmed a video in Toronto and I was riding around in like this baby blue buggy. And it was my first taste of like what the music industry was. It was a record that I wrote, called Love 'Em All. And then they obviously happened to pick it up. Shout out to my guy, Mo, who worked alongside a producer by the name of Dirty Swift, who produced that record. And I met them in a studio in the Bronx, and for that record to actually make its way into Canada, and I think it was like gold status in Canada at a
Yeah.
point in time. What it did was it gave me a taste of what I would say fame is, and also how the music industry works. And I made so many great relationships in Toronto, man. So shout out to everybody. Shout out to Baby Blue Sound Crew, Claire. I mean, everybody, every artist that's up there, that were probably in the infancy stage. This was like circa 2001.
Holy crap.
So I don't know how old you are, but
So
this
I was
is
born
like,
in 97, so yeah, 2001, I was
yeah.
like 3 or 4.
Yeah, look it up. It's called Love 'Em All. So it was definitely an experience, man. I used to come up to Caribana, for a few years straight, for
Jeez.
sure.
What is the last time you went down to Caribana?
It's been a while. It's definitely been over a decade or over more than that, probably. Actually, it's funny because I was in Toronto. I was in Hamilton for a car show last year. And that was like my first time back in near Toronto in
Yeah.
a while. And it's been one of those places that have always been near and dear to me. I want to make my way up there a lot more often. But life. And sometimes, when you get calls, I'm waiting for that call to come from Toronto to say, "Hey, you want to jump on this show?"
Yeah.
So we figure that out.
Or
Shout
yo,
out
we'll
to,
set something up, bro. Like for Caribana next year, I got you. We'll take you around and stuff. I got you, bro.
I love it. I love it. My team will love that too. I got to bring them up there when it's been a minute since we came up.
Yeah, it's probably like so different from the last time. So yeah, we'll definitely run something, man. I'll talk to you about it and we'll figure it out.
No
Did
doubt.
Toronto culture have any inspiration with your sound at all?
My family's from Jamaica, so
Oh,
I mean, when you look at Toronto culture, and then you look at my family's heritage and my Jamaican roots, um, and even though New York is basically like an extension of Jamaica, I feel
yeah.
like Toronto is as well. And I feel
Yeah, yeah,
like
for
there's
sure.
enough Jamaicans in Toronto for it to feel like a good vibe. And um, yeah, it's always been a great city to me. It's always been a great place. And honestly, like once again, one of those places where there's so much talent that is coming out of
Hmm.
of Toronto that I mean, I know you have huge artists like Drake that are coming out, and I want to say few other people as well.
Yeah.
But but I think there's a lot more untapped potential in Toronto that people don't know about,
It's
that
that
the world
sound.
hasn't.
I think it's inspiring a lot of the new artists too.
Absolutely, 100%.
Coming from a Jamaican background, what were some of the Caribbean artists you used to listen to?
All of them. I have a record with Baby Sham. I have a record.
Oh,
Well, I'm
nice.
gonna
Yeah, yeah,
call
I
him
remember.
Sham now. I have obviously a record with Junior Reid.
Classic.
I have records with Red Rat. I have records with Vybz Kartel. I have records with um man, Mr. Vegas.
Oh man.
Yeah, the list goes on. Like the culture is there. I'm first generation American. My family's from Jamaica. My mother's from Jamaica. So like it's for me, whatever I do, whatever I touch, it's always going to have two perspectives to it, which is
Yeah.
one, the culture that I come from, and also from the hip hop culture. And, so a lot of my records kind of carry, like, I have a record with Kamani Marley on my second album. A
Yep.
lot of the records I do kind of carry a reggae element to it. So if anybody hasn't heard a MIMS record other than This Is Why I'm Hot,
I
I
gotta
would
check
say,
out your shit, bro.
yeah,
That's
check it out.
but that's the one thing that I love, man, is that you blend in, your heritage with it, and you have that stamp of stamp of approval on like every record that you have. You still bring them in some sort. Me,
Of
I'm
course.
I'm a West Indian, so like Guyanese and Trinidadian. So that's the
Nice.
one thing that was heavy for me was just we grew up around like soca and dancehall music too, and reggae music. Did you
Yeah,
get to meet any of those guys, those artists?
of course. I have a great relationship with all of them. Still to this day, it's one of those things where, I love the fact that my remix to This Is Why I'm Hot featured Junior Reid and Baby Sham.
Yeah.
And I think what I love most about that is that record took on a life of its own. Like when you talk about the original version of This Is Why I'm Hot, it's a monstrous record. I can go to places in Asia and perform that record and people will rock. And then you got the reggae version where
Blackout one
sometimes
is it's
there you
tough,
go.
man. Tough.
Yeah. So I think sometimes people will say This Is Why I'm Hot was such a huge record, and I get it. But they don't realize that that was really just two records, two
Hmm.
monster records on the same beat, in essence, on the same dub or the same,
Yep.
track, rhythm, I would say. Well, This Is Why I'm Hot beat was more like a rhythm
It was,
that
yeah.
year than anything. And then it was just two monstrous records that were done on it. So yeah, for sure.
So, getting into the This Is Why I'm Hot era, what was the inspiration and concept behind the record? How did it grab the attention of Capitol Records?
Yeah, originally, This Is Why I'm Hot was created out of frustration, right? So like
Hmm.
I was frustrated at the time when I started recording the record. And the way I tell the story, and it's usually typically the same way. My manager and friend at the time, his name is Christian Fields, came to I was living in Jamaica, Queens, and he came to my home with a beat CD, and the CD was filled with all of these Southern driven tracks. And I was a New York artist that prided myself on having some sort of lyrical content,
Yeah.
but but just adding my clubby bounce and vibe to it. That was always my thing. Like, yeah, I'm gonna get a little bit lyrical, but it's gonna be clubby. And I remember hearing these records, and I'm like, man, how should I attack this record? Should I over rap it, I guess, at that time, which mean it's a Southern track, but do I want to add like a New York element to it where I'm just basically spitting bar after bar?
Yeah.
And then I remember like just trying to freestyle to a beat that he played. It wasn't the beat that we hear now today, but it was just the beat he played. And I just remember coming up with the first line out of as a freestyle.
Yeah.
But I kept saying, "This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot." And then I just kept repeating it. And I'm like, you know what? There's something to it. This is why I'm hot. I don't gotta
Catchy.
rap. I could sell a mill saying nothing
Nothing
on the
on the
track. And
track.
it was really simplistic. And I remember recording it and I said, man, there's something about this that's catchy. Even though I was just like being frustrated with just doing something simple, because I
Yeah.
didn't want to do anything simple, but I was like, yo, there's something catchy
Yeah.
about this. And shout out to Wes Money, who came. He flew. He used to live in Jamaica, Queens, a friend of my sister's father, and he came in and he heard the record and he was like, yo, I want to send this down to Blackout and I want him to reproduce the music behind it. And Blackout put his foot in it, and the rest is history.
So what was that moment like for you when it started to become a massive hit? Because it probably was surprising in a sense where you're like, yo, this is a lot. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Um, it's a blur to me, right? Like, and I say that because in order for you to, it's like you got to keep your head down
yeah,
when you working, right? So like whenever you're on a mission to doing anything in life, it's almost like you keep these blinders on and you're not trying to feel distracted by anything. So my goal at that time was just to do as much in as little time as possible.
yeah,
And I remember, I think I want to say we released the record in May of 2006, and by March of 2007. I remember sitting in LA and they brought out a plaque to me, similar to one of the plaques that are in the back, and it and
yeah,
it had number one rhythmic format, number one urban format, and that was the time that they announced that the record went number one. So from May of like '06 to March of '07, I don't even remember what took place. It was just one big blur of work and hard work and dedication and being on the road. And I think that post This Is Why I'm Hot, I had a tremendous amount of fun in music. Sorry, pre This Is Why I'm Hot, I had tremendous amount of fun in music. I think post This Is Why I'm Hot I turned into a different person. And that's when I got my first royalty check. My first check after working so hard, having the biggest
yeah.
record on the planet. It was like peanuts compared to what I thought I deserved. And and I just remember like when I came up for air finally to just figure out what had transpired. I got this check and I'm like, man, I worked that hard for this. Um and it just put a sour taste in my mouth. And I think that was the point where I loved what This Is Why I'm Hot. It became the gift and the curse. But I love
Yeah,
what the record had done for me. But I feel like it defined me.
yeah,
And then when I didn't get paid for it the way I wanted to, or the way I thought I should be
yep.
compensated, that also defined me. And that's when I just became a person who wasn't so interested in the business of music anymore.
And you see, that's the thing that I feel like people don't take in mind too is you can have the number one record, but these labels have a way of turning things against you in a way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so you said you generated, was it like 14 million, right? And
Yeah.
only got what
The
was like
numbers vary, but 14 to 16 million, some crazy number like
and you
that.
only got what, like 30K from it?
I think my first check, if I remember, was about a $30,000 check. Now, people always get it confused, and I see like the blogs try to tear me apart when they say, "Oh, you signed a bum contract and this and that." So I laugh at that because that was obviously not the case with my situation.
Yeah.
Number one, I was still a multimillionaire. I made millions of dollars during that time. When I talk about being underpaid, I was underpaid for the work I did with the record label. All the other ancillary things I was able to take care of and make a good amount of money. But at that time, for selling records, I feel like I was undercompensated. Wasn't compensated correctly. And here's how it works, right? I had a true partnership with my record label, which means if you spend $10 million, right? And you got a true partnership after the expenses are negated. Let's say you generate 10 million and you spent 2 million. That $8 million basically gets broken into whatever percentage every person gets. And what I realized is that you could have the best deal in the world. You could have the best contract in the world. The person who holds the gold, who makes the rule, is the person who collects the money.
Hmm.
Because if I say to you, hey, Sean, let's go into business with each other. I just opened up a restaurant and you say, okay, cool. I'm gonna market the restaurant, but I control the cash register and I just made $50,000. And I told you, hey, I made 50,000, but I spent $30,000 in buying steaks and
Hmm.
and fillets, and
Yeah.
you're gonna look at me and I'm gonna hand you a $10,000 check and I'm gonna walk away with 40,000. You know, so people don't realize that's where my discrepancy was. It's not
Yeah, for sure.
necessarily what I signed. It was how the money was was collected, and the power that I had to actually uh, figure out how it was spent.
And it's probably so tricky in this business, especially at that age, trying to figure out how to go about this. And you probably did like a lot of research to figure out, okay, so what's the way that I can still get some sort of income in away from it? What
Yeah,
was one
we
thing? Yeah, sorry, continue first. Sorry.
no, we went through 7 year litigation. So for anybody who knows what litigation is or lawsuits are, that's when you have to pay a lawyer a certain amount of money to go fight. And we fought 7 years. So it wasn't a lack of effort in fighting, my team and I. It just became one of those things where you realize that if someone gives you if you go into business with someone and they give you 100 grand, let's say you make 100 grand on
Yeah.
it, and they made 2 million. You have to then say, is it worth me going to spend this whole $100,000 fighting this in court, or do I just take my money and just go move on and go to the next situation? And I think sometimes people think that that the music industry is just this thing where you walk in and they say, "Hey, man, here's all of this money in the world. We're gonna give it to you, and then we'll just never pay you." It doesn't work that way. I mean, you have lawyers, you have entertainment lawyers involved, you have a lot of people behind the scenes that are involved with making things work. Even at the label, you have a promotions team, you have marketing, you have sales, you have A&R department. Uh, so there's a lot of moving parts to the music industry that people don't necessarily know about. And when labels are collecting money, they gotta keep these lights on, and they and
Hmm.
they gotta figure out these crafty ways to take as much from the artist as they can, because they got this big bill they have to pay with keeping these big buildings operating.
What was the mental, like, what was the mental that you were feeling at that time? Like, did it take a toll on you? Like, were you in a good situation? Like, were you in good spirits?
Yeah, I mean, once again, if you look at my history and my background, like the hardest part of my life was when my mom passed away. Like
Yep.
if it isn't something that, if that didn't break me, what makes people think that this something like this would break me? Um, I didn't I didn't feel a way about it. I just decided not to put my energy into it. Um, yeah, it made me not want to do music from a business perspective, but that doesn't mean it made me want to not make money. So I mean, I've always been a person who's been diligent. Like I said, my history has been diligent on finding what that next thing is, what that next hustle is, in essence. So you know, what I do now, I guess in my spare time is, and I don't make money off of it, is any artists that are out there that just need an understanding and perspective of how the business works. I offer them that information for free, because at the end of the day, if I would have had someone like me, giving me this information when I was coming up, I would have probably, made 20 times as much as I made.
Do you think the industry has changed for the better with you see a lot more artists being more independent now, a lot more recognition from, being on SoundCloud or TikTok, like those things like that?
I think artists have the ability to scale faster than they
Hmm.
did previous. The problem with that is that um the same way you get in is the same way you go out, right? So like you may
Yeah.
come in and you may have a record that takes off in 2 days. And then guess what? 2 days later they're on to the next record. So people call it microwave music, and I think, um, and it's no disrespect to the artists of the day. They gotta rock with what's given to them,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Like that's just what it is. If my music would have came out 5 years prior to me dropping, I'd probably have a diamond album, right?
Yeah.
Because I dropped right on the cusp of selling CDs and then into the digital era. So
Yep.
most of my money was accumulated digitally. So I think our artists of today just need to figure out how to use technology to their benefit. Uh,
You've talked
I think
about
that'll take
the
them a long way.
yeah, so you've talked about actually like the business side of music. What
Mhm.
was the biggest lesson that the major label system taught you?
I think the biggest lesson is you got to know when you need them and when you don't.
Yeah.
I think most artists will run around saying, "Hey, I want to sign a record deal. I want to sign a record deal." And I always ask an artist, "Why?" And their answer is, yeah, well, because I want someone to blow me up. And I'm like, well, you do realize that that's not how it works, right? Like a record label is not going to blow you up. You're going to blow yourself up. A record label is going to come in and be
Hmm.
able to take a record and make it bigger, right? They're going to be able to utilize what the resources they have to basically adding more resources to what you need to make that record bigger. So it doesn't work the way most people think it does, whereas, for example, in the 90s, an A&R may go walk in the streets and find this person that can sing.
Yeah.
And then because they find a person that can sing, they can introduce them to producers, get them in the studio, work with them as a talent, develop them, and then work on the marketing and promotional side. Today, none of that exists. As an artist, you have to come in with your fans and you have to come in with your music already. You can't rely on the system to create a buzz for you. They'll be able to help you when you have a buzz, but they won't create the buzz for you. And I think that that's the misconception that a lot of artists get. Just because you can sing, or just because you can rap, or just because you play instruments, that doesn't warrant you the ability to be successful in
Yeah.
music. There's a lot more that ties into it. And there's a lot more that you should be understanding. The smartest artists of today, um, they know how to, in essence, go viral. Like
Yeah.
they have this ability to just figure out how to go viral. And I have a love-hate relationship with that concept, right?
Yeah.
I love the fact that the artists get that much power. The
Yeah.
problem becomes how people are going and what they're doing to do it. And I see this thing that people say, especially about social media, because I'm not a social media person.
Yeah.
I dislike social media, but some people will say, most people aren't who they post to be,
Yeah.
right? Like they usually post, uh, making a play off the words. And I think that the problem is that when people see how people are going viral, they're automatically assuming that they got to do something crazy,
Very similar like that. Yeah.
yeah, to get noticed. And I think that that's a scary thing in today's space because you wonder if people have an identity or if they're just
Mm,
trolling,
yeah.
you know.
And that's another thing is where like they don't even know who they are anymore because they're so focused on the comment section on like, oh, this is who I have to be. I have to continue to promote like this because that's what's generating the following. And
Yeah,
it's quick content, but that's the thing, like they don't know who they are and it sucks in a way.
yeah. I always wondered, and as me as a 44-year-old with the child, right? Like I always wonder. Fast forward 20 years from now, some of these people that are in their 20s that they'll be reaching my age, will they look back and say, man, I did some stupid things when I was young, and then the worst part about it is that your digital footprint will follow you forever. You can't
Yeah.
delete anything nowadays because by the time you post it, somebody else then like ripped it and recorded it. So I think the ramifications of how we're living now in this viral world, the implications for them are going to start being more visual
Yeah.
within the next 5 to 10 years. We're gonna start seeing it. Yo, she's a dope artist, but yo, she was, I mean, and it's no disrespect. She's a dope artist now, but she was on OnlyFans.
Yeah.
He's a dope artist now, but he was doing stupid things to get, he said
Yep.
some stupid things back in the day. And you starting to see a lot of that with artists, like,
And then they
certain
do the whole
certain white
apology tour.
certain white artists using the N word when they in their teenage years
Yep.
and they feel like that's just their way of being viral and their careers take off and next minute they lose all their sponsorships. And it's a harsh reality that a lot of people will be facing when they get older. You know?
So you moved into the tech with apps and the blockchain projects before a lot of artists did.
Yeah.
What drew you to that space?
Innovation, disruption. I think for me, I think when the ultimate thing in life is to create something, right? So like, especially if you can do something from nothing. The first iteration of my life, I created something from nothing, right? Like I took, uh, two turntables and a mixer, and I turned it into a prominent music career.
Yeah.
And I think, as music became as I took a back seat to my music career, I'd say circa 2011, 2012, I wanted to figure out the next iteration of who MIMS would be.
Yeah.
And for me, it was disruption. It was, yo, how can I create something that'll disrupt my industry? And what am I going to create? And at the time, I was really interested in doing music-based software, like using your phone as a recording studio, right? So
Yeah.
like, so I created this app called Creator App alongside two of my co-founders, Blackout, who's also my producer, and also Eric Mendelson, who's also one of my business partners now. And we went on the road, and the beauty about this, like tech, I like to tell people, I wasn't out. Yes, people knew who I was when I was doing tech,
Yeah.
but it's not as like glorious as people think. Like we weren't out there like trying to use my name to get
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could, I would. You know, but the reality is that we were actually going to conventions. We were handing out flyers, for ideas that we would have, and in hopes that someone would bite on it. And we had to really humble ourselves going from music into the tech space and being in places like TechCrunch, Disrupt, and some of these other publications, and doing all these different things to kind of earn our credibility. And I think that that says a lot about it, people, is that when you can actually humble yourself and go and start
Hmm.
again from the bottom of something and try to lift it up to the top. That's what tech was for me. And then blockchain, I just so happened to be building a huge name for myself and what me and my team were doing. Um, that the blockchain thing just became a part of the conversation because circa 2017, everybody started talking about, hey man, you better get some Bitcoin. Hey, you better get some
Yeah.
Ethereum. And then I think as you start to learn about, for me, when someone says buy something, I think I bought. I'm not gonna tell people how much I bought, but I bought a decent amount of Bitcoin and a decent amount of Ethereum at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, well, how does this work? And I had to, like, in order for you to figure out how something works, you kind of got to like dive in
Yeah.
and break it apart. And we started understanding what blockchain was, and we started understanding that verification system that's used in blockchain, right? And eliminating the middleman was so important. It would have been a major thing for me in music had I been able to do that prior to my career launch. And
Yeah.
so I said, the light bulb went off in our heads, and we said, you know what? We need to create our own blockchain. We need to create our own protocol. And so we worked diligently to create it. And in creating that protocol, we started learning a lot about what blockchain really was, and how powerful of a tool it could be. Um, and the rest is history. Like that's kind of where I got my I didn't go to school. I wasn't in college learning any of this stuff. Like, you're blessed to be put in certain rooms
Yeah.
where you could learn from a lot of educated people.
So that's another thing where I was gonna say, where I was like, you come from, obviously you didn't go to college and stuff really, but you always had that mindset where you wanted to learn more. Um, was it like how was that experience like for you to be around such good people that had so much knowledge on those things? And did you ever feel like maybe like, oh, this might be a little bit overwhelming, or were you more so like, you know what, no, I can still do this. I just got to put that time into it.
I think when you walk into a room, it's important to learn how to be a fly on the wall when
Hmm.
necessary, right? So I think the problem with a lot of people is that they'll go somewhere and they want to be visible so badly
Yeah.
that they speak out and they talk, and they don't really sponge in or soak in the
Yeah.
knowledge
Yeah.
that they would get. Like it's easy to go in a room and just talk, 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 talk. But when you're in a room with the right people, really, if you're in the right rooms, you shouldn't be talking at all. You should just
Yeah.
be listening. That's how you learn. So for me, um, and I don't want to say I mastered music, but I understood music, right? So I was no longer interested in being in the rooms with just musicians.
Yeah.
because I understood it already. I was the number one artist in the country. I know what that felt like. If I had did it again, it would have felt great, but it would have still been just
Yeah.
the number one artist in the country. So there's no real accolade above that. But when you start to walk into rooms where people are talking about, you know, coding
Hmm.
and, I mean, I don't want to sound like a nerd, but just stuff that most
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
won't know. And I'm sitting there like, okay. Like I didn't know that. I didn't
Yeah.
know, that's how Twitter worked or that's how Instagram was created. Um, and I think when you start to you put yourself in the right rooms, I think the best thing you could do is just shut up.
Yeah. And was it ever like did you always have that mindset where you enjoyed business like that too, like in school and stuff? Or were you always like fascinated to learn more about business?
When I was in school, um, I was always fascinated with trying to connect the dots. So
Yeah,
whenever
yeah.
someone calls me and they say, "Hey man, how you been?" I'd be like, "Yo, I'm cool. I'm just connecting the dots." That's like my famous thing. Uh, but here's the kicker about that, right? Like if you master how to connect the dots the right way, y- you could put certain deals together um that you wouldn't have imagined that you'd be able to do. So like for example, I may walk in a room and someone over here is looking for apples,
Hmm.
right? And someone over here's got money and you know, the person who has apples is looking for money. And I say, "Hey, my man, you didn't see homeboy over there. All right, well, let me
Yeah.
connect you guys together." Um, and I think what happens is you start to, and once again, if you walk in a room and you shut up, start to listen to what people have to say, and you start to understand their needs and what they're looking for. And if you're in the right room, once again, most of the times I'm in these rooms with money and ideas. This side's got money, this side's got ideas. And here I am saying, this person just came to me, he's got $100 million.
Yeah.
This person just came to me, he's got $100 million idea.
Mm.
I'm going to put them together. And I think that's what I've been blessed enough to do in life. And I may not know everything about blockchain. I may not know everything about music. I may not know everything about food and beverage, but I've tackled all of those worlds,
Yeah.
uh, with, as if I do. And I don't have any limitations. I don't have anything holding me back saying I can't do anything. There's nothing that can be done that I can't do.
That's amazing to say, and even to have that kind of mindset. You know, the one thing I always commend you for was just how much you've also went through and been through, but you turn into positivity and you seem like you always want to be able to help people. If it's just learning about something or carrying them with you, like you said, like just now. Was that something that always like came from like growing up and stuff too?
If when you're the underdog enough in life, you want to see other underdogs successful. Um, I think that people tend to get jealous at the wrong people in
Hmm.
life. And jealousy is one of those things where it could really, really be a setback for most people. So when I see someone who has talent or who has, intelligence or who can bring something to the table, I don't in my mind say, man, I got to limit this person, for what they should be
Yeah.
able to access. I immediately say, man, how can I help this person, get to the next level? Um, and that's always been my thing. It doesn't always work out the best because
Hmm.
because I tend to always sometimes get I don't want to say get cheated, but I feel like that's not my approach. Like I don't approach anything saying, "Hey, I want something from it." I just see
Yeah.
where I could fit in and where I can connect the dots, like I said. And I think people get jealous of other people who could potentially be successful. But what
Yeah.
I say is this: if I help someone reach a certain point, and they help someone reach a certain point, and then they help someone reach a certain point, at some time in life, we all could look back and say, man, we all got over that hump and
Yeah.
maybe that hill. I don't think everybody is meant to come on certain journeys. It's not meant for everyone, but
Yeah,
if you could help somebody um reach the next level, why not? Like, what does it hurt? It doesn't
yeah.
hurt a person, There's this way too, there's so many successful people in this world, that there's no room for jealousy for me or for me to be able to stop. I'm going to help as many people as I can.
That's a great mindset, bro. And I think, there's always going to be blessings from that. That's another thing where I feel like if you do good for others, good will always come back and repay you. And if you're doing for the goodness of your heart, like good things will always come to those who stay true. That's something I always believe in too.
Absolutely.
It's, just I have a couple more questions and then we'll get out of here. But
We good. We good. I'm rocking with you.
obviously, it's easy to be known for a one-hit wonder, but there's another challenge to challenge yourself and build upon that. What were some of the lessons that you learned throughout this journey to get you to this point?
Uh, there's so many. I think there's so many lessons you learn. I don't know if I can pinpoint just one, but the first thing that comes to mind for me is adversity, right? Like, so resilience,
Yeah,
resilience and adversity, right? So like, um, you there's another saying, and I hate to use these cliche sayings, right? You miss 1,000% of the shots you don't
don't
take, or
take. Yep.
100% of the shots you don't take. But then when you take the shots, you may take 100 shots and miss 99,
Hmm.
right? But it's the one shot that you
All you need
made
is
that
one.
counts, right? Yeah, all you need is that one shot. So I think for me, um, I've mastered the ability to get back up,
Hmm.
you know. And I don't know why. It's funny because I think people who've mastered the ability to get back up, they're the ones who get targeted the most
Yeah,
for people trying to kick them down or just do negative things or say negative things about them. And I've mastered the art of just getting back up. And then the other part is that I've also mastered the art of tuning people out, like tuning out the negativity.
which is hard to do,
And
man.
in today's world, when people can easily just go on a post and say, "Hey, you suck," or
Hmm.
"Hey," and I think for me, what I realize is that anyone who has the ability to criticize me and what I'm doing or what I've done, there's no way in life that they could be doing better than me.
Hmm.
No way. Because if you're doing better than me, the last thing in life that you would want to do is go back to a person you're doing better than and kick them,
Yeah,
right? Most people who are successful don't even have time for that. So I think resilience in times of adversity is important. Um, and not being able to accept the fact that you can't do something. Right? Um, Muggsy Bogues was
hmm
a 5 foot
5 foot something, but he
th-
was in the
5 foot
dunk.
three, but he could dunk the
Yeah,
basketball. So if you 5 foot 5, you got no excuse. Like, what you gonna tell me? I just saw somebody
you
who was 5 foot 3 do it. It's not impossible,
can make it work,
so
man. There's always got to just find the way.
absolutely.
Do you think people are sometimes just too lazy to, because they have the idea where they want to make it happen, right? But the actual work to put in, they never follow through with.
Accountability,
Yep.
right? The worst thing about some people is accountability. Nobody wants to be told what they're not doing, right? Most people want their egos uh, massaged,
Yep.
right? Oh, you're doing great. That was a great shot. That was a great pass. But the ones who are the best, Kobe Bryant, those are the
Hmm.
guys that sit in the gym putting up 1,000 shots because 999 wasn't good enough.
Hmm.
Um, you know, there are people out there who are working hard. Now there's talented people who don't have to work as hard. There's some people who are 7 foot 5 and they could just do this with a basketball.
Yeah.
And I hate that I'm using a basketball reference, but the reality is you could use this in any facet
With
of
anything though,
life.
yeah, yeah, good.
But there's some people that are naturally talented, but hard work beats talent when talent doesn't show
Work.
up,
Yep.
right? So if you came in and said, "Man, I'm gonna make this. This is gonna be easy peasy," but you didn't even get into the room because you couldn't wake up that day. The person who is 10 times less talented, you showed up. Guess who's gonna get that opportunity? The
Hmm.
person who showed up. Um, so I mean, no, I think that you hit the nail on the head. Laziness. accountability. Like, let's be accountable to one another. If you see one of your peoples or your comrades and they slacking, you got to let them know, hey man, I think you can do a little bit better. You can be a little bit better. You can put a little bit more effort in. Um, and I think that'll go a long way. So most people can't take that though.
That's
So
the
you got
thing
to
though,
be
like,
careful.
and that's the hard part is because like it comes off where people think you're hating or something, but it's just constructive criticism. But some people don't see it as that light. But
Yeah.
that's something that's on them. It's not really anyone's fault.
Yep. I've been called everything you could imagine. I've been called the worst artist in life. I've been in the tabloids for being the worst dressed person in the world. I remember at one point in my career, someone said that they spotted me as a waiter at Denny's. And there's no disrespect to anyone working
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
waiter.
for
But
sure.
like when you can take this type of criticism, like there's nothing. And once again, like I mean, my life started off where I lost both my parents by the time I was 13 years old. Like if you think something you say to me is gonna affect me in that manner, you crazy. If you
Yeah.
haven't been through that type of adversity and gotten back up, then there's nothing that you can throw in my face that will convince me that I should stop and worry about what another person thinks of me.
No, and you honestly, you deserve all the praise in the world, man, because to go through so much and have that adversity and still be a positive and good person and stuff, like it's hard to find, man. And, I really appreciate that you were being so honest with us today about this, and just I think it's inspiring too to see that as dark as sometimes can be, you could still find the light in a sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know a lot of people out there are probably going to watch this and say, hey, but he's making it sound easier than it really is. And I get it. There are people who out there who struggle
For sure.
when they wake up, they struggle with something. And it's not always going to be a walk in the park. I don't wake up and it's always a walk in the park. But I know the mission that I'm on and I know what I want to get accomplished. Um, and I think that when we go back to what I said before, when you can see what it is you want, and it's tangible to you, there should be no reason why you can't achieve it or get it. And you just got to keep that mindset for sure.
Thank you so much for doing this, bro. Last thing before we go is what's next for you, man? Like, what do you have going on?
I'm a lot more behind the scenes right now. So I'm obviously raising a young child myself, a young boy, and I think that I've basically taken on the role of that's my primary job when I wake up is to make
Sure.
sure he's in position and he's the next iteration of whatever it is he wants to be.
Yeah.
And I think that that's my job now. Like that's my main job, and then everything else is just comes to me as it comes, um whether it be tech related, music related, whether it be food and beverage related, I'm here to tackle on anything as they come in. I'm not specifically married to anything. I'm 44 years old. I've done fairly decent for myself in life, and I'm blessed to say that I've been able to do it. So I think for me, the next iteration of me is just relaxation, being a father, and just enjoying the moments.
Congrats, bro. Thank you again for doing this, man. I'm really appreciative. I'm a huge fan of yours. So this deal feel like surreal. So thank you so much for this opportunity, bro. And if you ever want to come back on the show, I'd love to have you again, man. Thank you, bro.
And anytime you need me, Sean, I'm here, and I appreciate you, man. The Trey
Thank,
Fan Podcast, your boy Mims, the hottest podcast on the planet right now. My man Sean is putting it down, so we here. That's right.
thanks, bro. And we out.